I'm pretty excited about what we're doing here. The truth about him. So it's funny how this idea for this podcast, this brand, came to me actually this morning at 6:30 a.m. Right. Um, I've been going through some mental battles as a man, and in my research, I'm looking for support, right? Support, I have my band of brothers, but what other support can I get out there to figure out what's going on and how to navigate through this thing called life and being a man in this life? And I really couldn't find anything. I
Right.
really couldn't find anything that supports men in mental health. And and I believe that us as men, we want to do so much for ourselves, for our families, for our kids, for our spouses, for our girlfriends, for society, right?
Right.
We want to do so much, but there's this, I guess, this stigma, this lie about who men are and what we want, right? So I want to tell the truth about him, right? The truth about him and what he wants, what he goes through, and what he experiences in this thing called life. Because I think if we get a hold of who we are and the truth about him, then we can be better men in whole. So my man Anthony Williams, thank you for joining me, brother. I appreciate you
Pleasure.
being here. And we just hopped on camera.
This is
and
real spontaneous.
Real spontaneous.
It's
Hopped
like-
on camera, and then we brought Jamin in. So Jamin's over there. Say hi, Jamin.
Yeah, he's a producer director back there,
He's over there. So
controlling the board.
we gonna all talk about him and the truth, and just share our feelings, share who we are as men, and just talk about our experiences. And one, for me, this is gonna be my therapy, right?
Right,
This
right.
podcast, and hopefully walking through my healing journey, it can help other people get through there. So yeah, so let's get into it. I have no idea where this is going, but it's episode 1.
Got you.
The truth
So-
about him. Go ahead.
Where did we leave off? We were having really just coming. We had a cancellation, so
Yeah,
we sit down,
yeah.
and just started talking,
Yeah.
and the conversation started getting real good.
It did.
And we're like, man, we got to turn the cameras on and get this.
Right.
Kind of lose a little of the momentum. It take 5 or
Right.
10 minutes to get stuff set up,
Right.
but once we get it going, it's on.
It's on.
So, it's interesting. You and Elle did a podcast couple shows back on I Create, right?
Right.
And she said something, and it's so true. And how many of us have heard this, or if we said this to our kids, or we've heard it in our family, is, it's just a way that we socially engineer young men, young children, really babies, toddlers, but I'm talking about men.
Yeah.
Right? And that there's all this societal pressure on them. They got to be a certain way. You're a man. You have to
Right.
be tough. You
Right.
can't have feelings. You have to, man up. I think that's what it was.
Man
He's
up, yeah.
either man up or get over it.
Right.
Those are some hurtful words. And anybody saying that to their kids or to their family members, please don't do that.
Yeah.
Because that stuff hurts. And it doesn't build, it's not constructive, and it doesn't produce the mental health or the
Right.
positive mindset that we need just to get through the day-to-day of our life.
So, what does that mean when it says men can have feelings? Because we do have feelings. We were born with feelings, right? Everybody else have feelings. So, what does
Right.
it mean by men can't have feelings? Because that's how I grew up.
Right.
You can't cry. You can't show any emotion. The only emotion that you're allowed to show as a man is anger
Right, and aggression,
and aggression.
and testosterone,
Yeah,
and
you can't be vulnerable. You can't.
Right.
You can't be weak. You can't cry because that's weakness. I think that's destroyed us as men, destroyed who men are, because there's been times in my life growing up from a child to adult that I felt like crying, but
Right.
I held back tears because a man ain't supposed to cry. And even though growing up, going through training, going through different processes, yesterday I found myself super emotional, and I started to cry, but I immediately cut it off, right? Because men don't cry, and that's something that's been ingrained in us, and I know millions of men go through that like every day, every second of the day, right? So why is that? Why can't men show emotion?
Wow, that's a big one. This is what it seems like to me, is Right. Society's saying you can't. You raise these kids and you tell them they got to be men, they got to be macho, they have to be,
Right.
have all that, whatever that is. I think that's just really a kind of like a 1940s or even before them mentality of, okay, this is what men's role is. Men's supposed to
Right.
do this. He goes to work, he comes home, and that's pretty much all he take care of the yard, the outside stuff. And he's this strong guy that's
Right.
supposed to be able to handle all of this and all the pressures that come with it, whatever
Right.
he might be dealing with in his job or however that's going, or relationships with his family. He just has to suck it up, be stoic, and show that strength
Yeah.
that, okay, you can still lean on me,
Yeah.
but you got to have something to stand on too. Fortunately for me, I've had good support around me that's helped me
Yeah.
with that,
Yeah.
and certainly my wife has been helped me along the way with
Yeah.
that. And the way that I grew up and the way that I was raised, it just sets itself up for generational trauma, and then we carry this stuff, and we conform to what everybody is telling us the way that we should be, the way
Right.
that we should act,
Right.
but that's not really who we are inside. So
Right.
what happens is,
Right.
and I got this from JoJo, my son, and he's just talking about we have perfected suffering in silence.
We have perfected suffering in silence. Wow.
Yeah, and that's not right, and that's not
Wow.
good.
Wow.
Right. So, a lot of times, sometimes my wife asks me, "What's wrong?" And I'm thinking about business or whatever it is, and it's not comfortable energy.
Yeah.
And I just say nothing.
Yeah.
Right. But she knows
Yeah.
there's something going on.
She knows you.
Right. And then when I'm ready to talk about it, and then I'll say, hey, this is kind of what's going on. We're trying to work through this, and it's a little frustrating or whatever. But men's mental health, I think to me, it seems like we're getting more and more people talking about it and the issues coming up. All you have to do is just go to the gym. Now, we go to the gym, we work out together, and that's a great source of pick you up for mental health. So even me, for this week, I just felt like my spirit was low, my mindset was low, my creative energy was low, I was really tired, and sometimes you just don't want to get out the bed.
You're right. You don't.
Right?
You don't.
So this week, I spent more time at the gym, more time with you and the brothers at the church. Not the church, but the
Gym.
it's like church because, man, I be getting spiritual healing, everything. We talk about everything. You push yourself to the point where you don't think you can go anymore, and then the others around you push you so that you can be the best that you can be and deal with all the stress that comes with just being a man and trying to deal with all the responsibilities and making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about the truth about him, right? Exactly. Who are we as
Who
men?
is him?
Yeah. Who is him? Us.
Right.
Who are we? And I believe to a certain extent we have to be men, be macho, be protectors. But I believe vulnerability and honesty and congruency is part of that, right? I don't believe absence. I don't believe if you cry, if you emotional, that's an absence of courage, right? I think that's super courageous,
Right.
that you can be a man and be vulnerable and come and go to your brother, go to your spouse, and say, you know what, this is where I am. I am feeling weak. I'm feeling weak in this moment. I need your support. I think that it's okay for men to let his guard down,
Right.
Because we want to be the protector, be the provider,
Right.
be the one that lifts you up, takes care of you, be in a sense the hero,
Right.
to a certain extent, right? And most men don't admit when they're in pain, don't admit when they're struggling. They just suck it up, right?
Yep.
So
Man up.
man up. A lot of times our therapy, our medicine is to go smash girls from here to Tokyo, right?
Right.
That's our medicine, right?
Right.
Other than just like, letting life heal us, going through that process. Because it's very, very painful going through a process that you don't want to go through, right? You've been used to a certain thing your whole life, but now that certain thing is taking a turn, it's ending. That process is painful. Most men don't want to go through the process, right?
Right.
And when I mentioned the truth about him, Jamin had a story about somebody at the gym. So I want him to share that story just from his perspective on what were you going to say before we stopped you talking about the truth about him.
We were in the gym, and Pops was talking to a young man, and I don't know what they were talking about before I got there, but I can tell Anthony had touched him in a way where he was explaining himself to me about him not growing up with a father, and if he would have grew up with a father, he would be more advanced in his upbringing and decision making. So I had shared with him that I thought that was bullshit, and it affects some, but not all. But it ultimately boils down to the choices you honestly make.
Right.
Now, how you was raised and what you've been taught does affect your psyche and your person. But when you're an adult, you can't reflect on the past and keep on making bad decisions.
Yeah.
So that's why I share with him. So for you to have this podcast, The Truth About Him, everybody's truth is different.
Right.
And everybody thinks they don't know who him or her is because we're confused about a lot of things because the mirror that was in front of us was confused.
Right.
So we stand in our own mirror working just as confused. So you need the brothers around to go through the confusion yourself and help because you don't know.
At some point you have to be responsible for your life.
Right. At some point you got to pick up the pieces yourself because help is not coming.
Because I myself grew up with no father. Right. I mean, I never had a dad in my life, and of course I made mistakes. I tripped. There are a lot of things I could have avoided by having that positive influence in my life. But looking back at my father now, if he would have been there, I would have been worse off. I don't think I would be sitting here today if he was actually in my life because of who he is.
Right.
So even though I went through all that mess and all that crap, at some point I got to stop saying, you know what? What happened to me was not my fault. Him being there was not my fault, but it's my responsibility to change that.
Right.
It's my responsibility to stand up and be a different man and make better decisions because at some point you know right from wrong. You know that this is right, this is wrong. But there's a process to that. You have to be committed to growing and being a better person and healing all that childhood trauma. You have to. You can't just walk through life being the exact same person because most people don't like what they have or who they are. That's because every day they have the same thoughts, the same visions, the same feelings.
They're just going in a loop.
You got to change that, right? What do you think about that?
Right. I think you brought out some good points. Certainly. Okay, let me just circle back about even for me, and that's affected a lot of young men. And right now, the epidemic of single mothers out there that are raising kids alone. Now, let me get rid of this pillow. So for me, I grew up without a father too.
Yeah.
And that creates in itself a whole bunch of different trauma things that happen along the way in your development that you don't get and that you're missing, that you need to get back later in life because you're going to need it. So you're impacted by not having a father, and certainly when you have a mother that's not as connected and understand how to deal with that and all that's going on around it, it does make it hard, and it's hard on the kids. And I feel, especially growing up, so for me, I grew up I was a latchkey kid. I didn't know my dad. My mother didn't want to talk about it, and when I did, it was an issue. All the hostility, anger, and so that makes the kid shut down, and he's not going to be open to want to talk about what happened or what's going on in his life.
Anything.
Right. So as a kid, here I am, I'm this little kid, I'm learning, man up, shut up, be quiet, and deal with it. We got to move on, right? I'm the only child. I don't have brothers and sisters to help me. I don't have, so you got to figure that out.
Yeah.
But that's not really good. Now, certainly adversity seems like all the people that have been through adversity. I was listening to Monique's last night on her Netflix or whatever, and then you listen.
Me too. I watched it last night too.
Yeah, the amount of adversity that she'd been through, you're like, my God, this woman she'd been through it. She'd been through the fire.
I just hope she wasn't making that shit up because I was feeling her pain.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So she touched my heart too. It made me, it's like, man. And then it's like, so all these things, it impacts us. So we act a certain way. So we act a certain way when we're in grade school, when we're in middle school, when we're in high school, because of all that impact.
Yeah.
So then when we're around our friends, then we put on a mask and create what
Wow,
we think
yeah.
they need to see to accept us, because we're already in pain and we don't want anybody to penetrate that veneer that we're showing them, and that they still treat us right.
Yeah.
And we don't have to go on the offense to protect ourselves. So all that stuff really impacts. I know it really impacted me. And even at 57 years old, July I'll be 57, is you still have to deal with it, because those thoughts, like you said, you're just recycling those same thoughts that you had when you were made to feel a certain way when you were 13, or when you were 19 or 25 or 35 or 45 or 55 or whatever. The feeling is still the same.
Yeah.
And it doesn't get dealt with because, and life gets in the way too. You got responsibilities that you have to handle. Sometimes you don't even get the luxury to sit down and mourn your own pain.
You don't.
You just got to deal with it.
Yeah.
And, thank God for, our friendship that we have, and the ones around us that we can share what we're going through. We can be genuine. We could say, hey, this is really what the situation is. Yeah. Everyone on social media is putting up their highlight reel.
Right.
Right? Which that's a hole in a donut.
Yeah.
Swipe left. We done seen that so many times we don't care. Right? It doesn't touch the heart.
Tell him again.
Next.
Right.
Anyway, but you talked about being vulnerable, and that takes so much more courage. And to even cry, let alone by yourself, takes courage, because you have to do that to yourself.
Right.
And allow yourself to feel that and work through whatever psychological problems that you have accumulated to that point to release that. And it's actually a natural mechanism that has been built in our design to help us release stress, reset the brain, fix the physiology so that we can continue to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you for that. That was amazing.
Thank you.
And I believe that most people, I would say most men, avoid crying, avoid being vulnerable, because they're afraid to face themselves, of who they are and what they're going through in their true experience.
Right.
That was me yesterday. The reason that I got emotional and started crying was because I was just in my office. I took a picture of myself, and then I looked at the picture, and I was just staring at the picture. I was like looking into my own eyes, right? And I saw myself. And seeing myself made me super emotional. I don't know why,
right,
but it made me emotional. And you mentioned grieving. I believe that most men go through grieving while they're in action. They continue to work and be social and do their men stuff.
Go to the gym, go to work, do what they got to do, take care of stuff around the house, dealing with their family.
So the true feeling of that grieving gets buried, right? It's not expressed. Versus sitting down and being still, and if you gotta sit there and cry it out, if you gotta snot and cough and cry and scream, do it. Right? It's not forever. It's just take your time to grieve whatever you're going through, instead of trying to walk through the grieving process by being busy. We want to be busy all the time,
right?
But we definitely want to be in a place where we're open, right? We're open to giving and receiving, and really being that true man for our family. And that's something that we just generally don't have, because I don't think we allow ourselves to actually be at that place. But what happens if we do? What happens if we open up and be men, and we grieve, and we be vulnerable, and we be honest first with ourselves, saying that, hey, this is how I feel. Right. I feel angry, but anger is a secondary emotion. Actually, you're hurt, and then that hurt leads to anger.
Right. The anger is a byproduct of it,
right,
because you were impacted.
Right.
so that, you know, you felt it, that strike, whether
Right.
it's a verbal strike, a physical strike,
Right.
a psychological or emotional,
Right.
financial.
Right. And it's a reaction. Now, if you look at the word react, it really means to reenact a past trauma. So when someone says something, it's not really about what you said to me, Anthony. It's about, okay, that took me back to a past trauma that I had, with or without you. It's a past trauma.
Right.
So I'm reenacting that emotion like it just happened, like you did it to me. So it's a reenactment, and most of us reenact. Our response to reenactment is to be angry, is to be upset, instead of really talking about the root emotion. I was hurt by what happened, you know, and now I'm upset. We mask our pain with anger.
Let me ask you
Correct.
this, because I've seen this in myself where, okay, something's happened and I'm hurt, I'm offended, I'm wounded, right? That, and I don't know, maybe it could be the way I was raised. Who knows? Y'all can figure it out in the comments.
Right.
Is you have this, man, I lost my train of thought. Is, okay, we get hurt.
Right.
Repeat what you just said, because I'm trying to catch my train of thought.
What I just say. So I was talking about reenacting pain, how we mask our hurt with anger, right?
Right.
Instead of expressing like how we feel, you know, I'm hurt.
Okay,
we
I
go
got
right
it.
to anger.
I got
Go
it.
ahead.
So what happens is right. You'll be mad, you'll be angry, and you want to say something, and like, you hurt me, right? Okay,
Right.
I'm offended. But it's weird. We have this this weird thing. It's like, no, I want you to come to me
Right.
and recognize that you hurt me,
Right.
even though you're clueless that you hurt me.
Right.
But then that's not fair to you.
It's not fair to you, but it also makes it more intense, because that's called withheld communication. Right? It's like if you don't express how you feel, and you're thinking that someone should know, you're withholding communication from that person, so they have no clue what you're thinking, how you feel.
Clueless, right?
So,
Okay, so here I am, right, and I'm feeling this way, and it feels horror. It's
Right,
horrendous.
right.
Every part of me feels sick.
Right.
I'm hurt. I'm wounded, and it's just something. It could be the way the circumstances around your life, the way that you're raised,
Right.
what you go through, and you know you're hurt, and you're honest with yourself. You are hurt, and you want to tell this person, "Hey, honey, that hurt."
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, we don't, because maybe we're scared that they're not going to accept
Right.
what we say to
It's
them,
all fear.
right?
Right.
Or for whatever concoction we make up in our mind, we sell it to ourselves and we
Right.
buy it and we run with it.
Right. Right.
Versus just saying, hey, you know, you said this, maybe you didn't mean it this way, but the way it came out, it triggered me because of these things in my life that happened. You know, I can work on that so it's not
Right.
so impactful
Right.
on me in the future. But then at least, you know, we have a communication where we can say, okay, hey, this is what's going on. She didn't know that this happened.
Right.
And, you know, I'm over here in my quiet suffering, giving myself a heart attack and a stroke, which men have
Right.
all the time.
Right.
I heard this. This is crazy. Men are 4 more times likely to have a heart attack after an argument with their wife, family, or spouse
Right.
than a woman is. That's crazy. So,
So we get to a point where if a man is reluctant or resistant or hesitates about sharing his feelings
right.
with his spouse, 2 questions. One is that have you guys created a safe space where
Right.
either one of you can come and speak without anyone taking it personal, knowing that, you know what, this isn't my stuff. I'm just sharing with you, right? But I know it's me, right? And then 2, is it truly the crap that you grew up with or we grew up with? I think it's both.
A little of both.
Little of
It's
both.
kind of blending
Right.
into two
Right.
different worlds.
Because if you have a spouse, man or wife, and if you go to your spouse and you express to them that it's something that they did that hurt you, that made you feel a certain way,
Right.
And they say, you know what, no, that's not true, that's not what happened.
They discount.
They discount your feelings,
Right.
and then that turns, it makes you upset, and then secondly, you don't feel safe.
Right.
Because I'm a firm believer in that whenever you go to anybody about anything, so say just for example, you punched me in the arm,
Okay.
right? Okay, Anthony, you hit me in my arm,
Okay.
right? So that's blaming you and judging you, right? Instead
Right.
of saying, you know what, that punch made me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I'm talking about how I feel.
Yes.
Right. I'm taking everything off you. So what that does is that opens you up to be able to talk because you don't feel judged and blamed. I'm not saying you. I'm telling you how I feel.
Right. This incident made you feel this way.
Correct.
So we got to correct the incident.
Correct.
And fix that.
Correct. And if you take the judgment off people, they're more open to talk. But we speak with so much judgment in everything we do.
And the tone and the anger that comes out. So when you're talking,
Right.
people don't even understand what you're saying. All they feel is
Right.
this energy.
Everything's about
Of rage.
It's about guilt and shame. You don't, you never.
Right.
That's our conversations. And people shut down. And then
Very much so.
that safety goes away. We have to be at a point where we are people that can hold space and not take anything anybody says personal, because it's not about us. They're going through their own pain, their hurt, their trauma, right? And we take offense to every single thing. But if we can hold space and have people hold space for us, conversations, relationships can be a lot better, because we know that, damn, you know what? They're going through some really tough hurt and pain. But that does not allow anybody to demean you, disrespect you, or not respect who you are.
Right.
Right. So that's why it has to be mutual. Right. That makes sense.
Right. Yes, certainly it does. For me, I guess it's easier just to kind of think about my relationship with my wife over the years, because to be quite frank, I think that's where I learned the most.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
First of all, I met my wife when I was 19 years old, and everything before then was just story of chaos.
Yeah,
And, you know, you grow up in certain circumstances. It's predictable. It's like watching, a movie. It's just like you just see it happening. So, okay, so let's go back to that, right? Something happens to me, I'm hurt. So I shut down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to talk about it. I'm quiet. So what's wrong? Nothing. And then then if the energy is really aggressive, what's wrong?
Right.
Because I'm making you nervous or scared, and you're reacting and you're getting triggered, then somebody who's like me or somebody like that can just start shutting down, versus when there's this curiosity of inquisition of, like, hey, what's going on? What's wrong?
Yeah.
The spirit is different. It's that, it's funny because I talk about this too. It's that, that mother-child bonding connection.
Yeah.
And when you hear that tone, and it even happens for men with their wife. So baby's crying, they're upset, they hear their mom's voice, they calm down, and it soothes them because she brings a certain tone, a certain energy, and the baby feels that love, and he hears all that.
Yeah.
But that baby could be a boy who's going to grow into a man like us, right, and have to deal with whatever it is. But man, my mind is just racing so fast. I'm wanting to cover all these things. Just trying to keep my train of thought here is, a lot of times, like, we won't want to say, hey, what's wrong, and share our feelings. And that's something that we have, like, for me, I had to work on, right? Okay, I know something is wrong. I've been in the silent treatment for a day or two. I'm shut down. I don't want to talk. I am hurt, and I want to articulate it. So I have to kind of get to neutral, where then I can articulate it and say, hey, this happened, and then we can discuss it. Just like how you were saying, is it not without judgment, or, you did this or that. It's not about that.
Space,
It's just trying to, hey, look, this is what happened, and this is the way that I was impacted and affected in this situation. And these are some of the reasons that are making me respond this way. Some of it I got to work on this on my own. And then maybe you didn't even realize that this happened, and then it came in, and then it impacted me this way. But being able to have that conversation and having the communication where, it is safe, where I could say, or even her, she could be safe and say, hey, you may not realize it, but the tone that you're using, even though it's not what you're saying, it's not what you're saying, it's how you say it.
How you say it.
And being a man, being aggressive, maybe to the point where you're blunt, or you know, because sometimes we're just trying to get stuff done.
Yeah.
You get in that mindset and not adjust for our audience and who we're talking to.
Yeah.
And it's different when I'm talking to a man or a brother versus if I'm talking to a woman. You know, I have to deliver the message differently.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to learn how to do that, where we could talk about things like that's causing me a problem or I haven't gotten over. And then another thing too is the shame of dealing with generational trauma. I mean, how many times you heard, you know, you're 47 years old and we're still dealing with this? You should have got over this.
Exactly.
I mean, how does that make one feel when you've been traumatized and you've been dealing with this trauma your whole life and you're trying to get through it, and someone's coming at you who's supposed to be the closest person you love? Now, I'm not saying my wife did that. I'm just
saying in general. Yeah.
In general.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You feel demonized. You feel like not worth it. I mean, you feel like what's? I mean, you're the person that I'm supposed to trust in and confide in, and I'm being attacked. And most relationships are selfish, right? Everyone thinks that it's all about them.
Yeah.
Right. Because
that's how we are. We think about us first.
Right. You said that what's wrong, right?
Right.
Most conversations don't happen like that. Most of them are like, okay, what's wrong? It's always something. You upset now, right? And they think it's about them.
Right.
Right.
We internalize it.
Right.
Because so dang, the world revolves around us.
Right. And then that triggers the person that's really going through something. You know what? It's not about you, right? You know, I'm going through something. It's like you're not that important. That everything that I'm upset about is about you. I have a job. I go out and work. You know, I have kids. I have friends. I mean, things happen out there in the world. And just because something's wrong, it's not always about your spouse or your friend.
Right.
You know, and if we look at that and take the emphasis off of us, because again, that's us protecting ourselves. We're putting
survival
putting
mechanisms.
Guard,
yep,
right?
exactly.
Well, your guard is up for what? You don't even know what kind of gun is. If it's a gun, if it's an arrow, if it's a cannon, you put up this shield for something you have no idea what's coming, right? It can be a flower. You got this big shield up, and you're blocking everything that's supposed to come. So we just have to get in a place where we can hold space, we can communicate, and we can be truthful in our feelings, and also the person that we're with can also be open and listen and be truthful, because that will determine the success or failure of any relationship, whether it be personal or romantic.
Yeah, what you said about creating a safe space for anybody. It could just be two friends at the gym or a husband and wife, brother and sister. It doesn't matter, right? Is having a safe space where at least we could talk to each other and say, hey, you know, this happened and you're not going to attack me. I'm not going to attack you. You know, we're just trying to understand what happened and move past it emotionally and go on to the next step.
Yeah.
And also have a safe space where there's no passing judgment, where you can share with somebody and it's not getting all misconstrued about what you shared to come back at you like a boomerang.
Right.
A boomerang.
Yeah.
Then you don't want to share with anybody.
Yeah.
Right. So you shut down.
Yeah.
Because people's not understanding what you're really saying, what your true intent is, what's really in your heart that you're trying to express to other people to understand. You know, hey, this is how I feel. This is what's going on. Maybe not y'all aren't responsible for all of this, but, you know, this is what I'm dealing with. And that a person's feelings, whether they're your feelings or your wife's feelings or whoever it is that they're, you know, I've heard that people say, oh, F your feelings. Well, no, that doesn't work.
Nah.
It doesn't work, because the fact of the matter is that we are human beings. We do have feelings, and they do impact us. And when we have trauma, it impacts us. It impacts us 1 decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, 5 decades, 7 decades later.
Yep.
And it's unfortunate. And that's why I'm hoping to hear, and that there'll be more and more conversations around that people focus on the solution and work through these.
Yeah.
Because the direction that we're going with relationships, I mean, we all might as well just live in a cement box and just jack in with the...
And the problem is they want more people, instead of communicating, have dope ass podcasts like this to talk about it, they want you on medication to suppress it,
Yep.
Right.
not to get it out.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To smoke more, to drink more, to pop more, to abuse more, instead of uplifting yourself to free yourself from these things of the emotion and
Yeah.
learn how to cope with it on your own instead of suppressing it with other vices.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. That's good.
Exactly.
That's real good.
Right. Exactly. Because this is more solution oriented. This is what the situation is, and you work through it together, and having that communication where, that there's no judgment and it is safe and people can talk to each other and they can work together and elevate it. And to be quite honest, that is what has kept that's what kept is keeping my relationship with my wife going, is that ability to be able to, we were talking about that. What is it that a person can come into a room and they can feel?
We're talking about empaths.
Empaths. Yes, where a person has the ability to feel.
And they absorb everybody else's energy.
Right.
Good, bad, indifferent, anger. Empaths absorb all of that. And then they leave depleted. So it was saying that if an empath walks in a room and someone is happy, they're happy. If someone is sad, they're sad. If someone is angry, they're angry. And it's a transfer of energy. You give them your energy and they give you yours. So if I walk in a happy environment and say Jamin's upset and pissed, well, now I'm empty because he took my energy. Now he's happy and I'm depleted. So that's what empaths do. They absorb energy, and it can be good, but it can also be detrimental to your health. Right. To be an empath, and we'll do a show on empaths.
Okay. Gotcha.
That's really like a really deep subject. Go ahead.
I guess what I was trying to say in even bringing that up is that, one, you got to work together.
Yes.
It's not going to work. I don't care what it is. It's a business partner. It's players on the same team.
Yeah.
Husband and wife. Anywhere two people got to work together and cooperate and try to achieve a goal. Yeah. You got to have communication. You got to have respect, and you got to cherish each other and help each other, because you're only as good as whoever's the weakest at the time.
Right.
And you're not always going to be strong. Yeah. And you're not always going to be weak at some times, but having that other person that you can lean on to help you get through that, that is sensitive enough to be able to recognize, hey, something happened. What's going on? Anthony, are you okay?
Yeah.
What's going on? Well, something is going on. It's probably a better answer. I'm not ready to talk about it right now.
That's it right there.
Let me just try to work through it a little bit, and then when I can get to a point where I can feel I can talk about it,
where I've processed it,
and express it to you, not in anger, not in rage, not in sarcasm or judgment, but yet just like, hey,
be authentic.
This is what happened, and then you help each other.
Yeah.
And then and then that's where the unity comes in. Is you build those relationships is when you have those trials, and then you work together, and then you work through it together.
Yeah. Like my son tells me, Dad, can't go over it, can't go under it, gotta go through it.
Gotta go through it.
Go through it.
Your son said that to you?
Yeah.
Nice, I love it.
How old is your son now?
3, about to be 4.
I love it. I love it. Say it again.
Can't go over it, can't go under it. We have to go through it.
Yeah.
Wow. I
that's
love that.
it. And that's really it.
Love that. And the key to that is always working on yourself together. Right.
Yeah.
If you're married, work together. If you're single, keep working.
Yeah.
Because you're either going to grow together or grow apart. Right. It's your choice. And two people who truly love each other will always. I was told that the best gift that I can give my friends, my spouse, my kids, the best gift I can give them is to work on myself. That's the best gift.
Your best example, not that you're trying to show me a highlight reel, but you're wanting to bring your best attributes, your best qualities, your best mindset, your best thoughts, your best energy to people, to impart that into them.
Right. You gotta have the right tools, right?
Yeah.
It's like going to play baseball with a golf club.
It's not
going to work, right?
I don't care how good you
are.
Right.
You need a baseball, so you got to have the right tools for any situation that you're in.
Right.
And that right tool will make you successful. So what I want to do at this point is I want to invite people listening, because we do a call on Wednesdays, right?
Okay.
And I want to invite
Right.
you guys to the call. There'll be a link below where you can sign up, but just come, because we support each other, right? Because we all go through something. So I want to invite you guys to this call on Wednesdays, where we meet every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific, and we just talk about stuff and talk about the truth about him.
Right.
As we talk about. So
And what we're going through, and encouraging others and ourselves. I just want to circle back. It's so important to really develop the communication.
Yes.
And if you're not ready to talk, it's okay to say, I'm not ready.
Right.
But you have to, and respect the other person. And I think that's the key.
Yeah.
That always works. Getting a better understanding of another person's situation and where they're coming from always adds peace to whatever the situation is.
Right. Amen.
Versus, getting caught up in your feelings and where you are, you're striking out and you're behaving out because you're not getting your needs met. But if you could just step back, take a break, exercise, go run around the block, and then come back and deal with it when you kind of calm down. But you absolutely have to have that communication.
Yeah. And I'll say this, and I'll be super clear to you guys. Social media is not the standard for relationships. It's not
at all.
It's fake. All you see is what people want you to see, right? You don't see the behind the scenes. You don't see everything they go through. I mean, and I know you guys know this, but hear me. If you're basing your relationships, how you do business, how you do parenting, how you do marriage off of social media, I promise you, everything you're doing will eventually fail. You have to grow yourself, heal yourself, know who you are, know what trauma you've been through, and work your ass off to get through that and be a better version of yourself. You have to awaken to your higher self. If not, everything you do will crumble, and you find yourself in a position of pain where you don't need to be in. Pain's a part of life, but certain things we can avoid. Certain relationships do not have to be hard, but we make them hard because we're selfish and we're looking at other people in their lives and comparing who they are, what they have, to what we have and who we are. You do that, recipe for disaster. That's it.
That is definitely a recipe for disaster. Let's end on a good note, though.
Sure.
And I always like to focus on the solution and not the problem.
Yes.
We definitely have to identify the problems and deal with them as they show up in our life. But I believe that by focusing on what you want and having the mindset of, okay, I want peace at home. I want peace with my family. I want peace in my business life, is just constantly meditating on that and focusing on that. And whether it's prayer, whether it's meditation, or you just have to just push yourself through the exercise, it's just a fact. It's just the law of the universe that we have here, is that what you set your energy on and your intention on and your focus, that is what is going to grow. Once you plant it in the ground, it's going to get the fruit of whatever you planted. And that we have to plant those seeds of openness and kindness and safety, that how you feel and what you're going through is important, and that our overall mental health, as far as men and women, because we see so much constant back and forth, men against women, blacks against whites. It just goes on and on and on and on. It's chaos. Forget all that. We need each other, and we are not going to get any further without each other. So this mentality and this mindset of thinking, forget men, they're no good. Forget women, they're no good. That's all garbage. That's all the noise on this side and on this side. We need each other. We have to work together. We have to understand, what you're going through and what I'm going through. We have to find some place where that we can meet and grow together, because this is not going to go good. So if we focus on what we want it can go good, and we don't have to have the result that we don't want. We could get the result that we do want, which is love, peace, joy, and happiness. Who said that in the song?
I don't know. You did. That's your song now.
Love and happiness.
Yeah.
Y'all put it in the comments.
Al Green.
Oh, okay.
Al
It was
Green.
Al Green.
Al Green.
That's probably old for some folks.
Right.
That's way back, but
So
that's all I'm. That's
yeah.
what I'm saying. That's worked for me.
This first episode was, I mean, it was basically ad-lib. We had no plan,
None.
but it worked.
Freestyle.
But now, welcome to the Truth About Him podcast. We're going to have so much more content for you. And yeah, so thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. Catch us on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcast, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.